Have you ever wondered who really holds the power in our society? It's a question that has long intrigued historians, sociologists, and political scientists. The answer, in many cases, is not as straightforward as it seems. Today, we're embarking on a journey to understand a complex and often misunderstood concept: oligarchy. At its root, an oligarchy is a form of government where power is held by a small group of individuals. These individuals may be distinguished by their wealth, family ties, education, or corporate connections. But why does it matter? Because when a small group holds the power, the interests of the many can be overshadowed by the desires of the few. In the next few minutes, we'll unravel the truth about oligarchy and its grip on power. We'll explore how it shapes societies and influences governments, and we'll delve into historical examples that bring these concepts to life. Sit tight, and let's dive into the intricate world of oligarchy. Before we delve deeper, we must first understand what oligarchy means. In its purest form, oligarchy is a system where power is held by a small group of individuals. These individuals could be distinguished by their wealth, family ties, education, corporate, or military control. Essentially, it is a form of government where a few are ruling the many. Now, you might be wondering, how does this differ from other forms of governance? Well, it's all about the distribution of power. In a democracy, for example, power is distributed among the citizenry. Every citizen has a say, a vote, and a chance to influence the direction of the state. In contrast, in an oligarchy, the power is concentrated in the hands of the few. The majority have little to no influence on decision-making processes. Let's delve a bit deeper into the key characteristics of an oligarchy. Firstly, oligarchies often have a strong correlation with wealth. Those with the most financial resources are often the ones in control. Secondly, oligarchies tend to maintain their power through force or manipulation rather than through the consent of the governed. They may use their influence to sway policies, elections, and even the law to their advantage. Lastly, oligarchies are often characterized by a lack of social mobility. It's a system that tends to perpetuate itself, with power being passed down from one generation to the next within the same group. It's important to note that an oligarchy isn't always as clear-cut as described. In reality, many societies exhibit a mix of oligarchic and democratic elements. For example, a country may hold elections, but the real power may lie with a small group of wealthy individuals or corporations who can significantly influence policy and decision-making. And there you have it. That's oligarchy in a nutshell. A system where a few hold power over the many, often maintaining this power through wealth, force, or manipulation. Now that you have a clear understanding of what oligarchy is, let's explore how it gains power. History is rife with instances of oligarchies usurping power. A statement that rings true as we delve into the annals of time, where power, control, and wealth have often been concentrated in the hands of a select few. Let's take a journey back to ancient Greece, the birthplace of democracy, but also the breeding ground for oligarchy. The city-state of Sparta was ruled by an oligarchy, two kings who held the military power, and the Gerousia, a council of elders who held the legislative power. This was a classic example of a power shift where the majority had little say, and the minority held the reins. Fast-forwarding to the Italian city-states during the Renaissance, we see another form of oligarchy take root. The Medici family in Florence is a striking instance. Through their vast wealth amassed from banking, they wielded incredible influence over the city's politics. They controlled the government, not by direct rule, but through patronage and influence. The Medici family's rise to power was gradual, their wealth and influence seeping into every aspect of Florentine life, until they were the unspoken rulers of the city. In more recent times, the late 20th century saw the emergence of oligarchy in Russia following the fall of the Soviet Union. A group of businessmen, later known as the oligarchs, capitalized on the economic chaos and privatization of state assets. These individuals accumulated enormous wealth and consequently political power. They influenced government decisions, dictated policies, and essentially controlled the country's trajectory. Similarly, in South Africa during the apartheid regime, power was exclusively in the hands of a small group of white minority rulers. They controlled the government, the economy, and the societal norms, enforcing racial segregation and discrimination. But it's not just restricted to politics. We can see oligarchic tendencies in other aspects of life as well. Consider the media industry. A handful of corporations own the majority of media outlets, controlling the information we receive and shaping public opinion. What's common in these historical examples is the gradual and often subtle shift of power. In Sparta, the kings and the Gerousia slowly solidified their control. The Medici family's influence crept into every corner of Florence. In Russia, the oligarchs capitalized on a period of chaos to amass wealth and power. In South Africa, the white minority rulers enforced their control over time. And in the media industry, a handful of corporations have slowly bought out or pushed out competition. It's this subtlety and gradualness that makes oligarchy so insidious. It's not a sudden coup or a violent revolution. It's a slow seepage of power, wealth, and control into the hands of a few. And before you know it, they're in control, and the majority is left on the sidelines. As we can see, the rise of oligarchy is often subtle and gradual, making it difficult to counteract. So, stay informed, stay aware, and remember, power should always be in the hands of the many, not the few. The power dynamics in an oligarchy are quite different from those in a democracy. In the grand game of power, oligarchy is a unique player. Here, power isn't a prize to be won by the many through the ballot box. Instead, it's a treasure hoarded by the few, often passed down through generations, as easily as one inherits a family heirloom. Now, imagine a table laden with the most sumptuous feast you can think of, representing a nation's resources, opportunities, and decision-making powers. In a democracy, everyone gets a seat at this table. But in an oligarchy, it's a private dining room, reserved for the privileged few. This concentration of power in the hands of a few might seem efficient on the surface. After all, fewer cooks in the kitchen means less chaos, right? But when the same handful of people consistently hold the reins, it can stifle innovation and progress. Why? Because if those in power have their needs met, they may not feel the urgency to change or improve anything. Moreover, this power structure can also lead to economic inequality. With an oligarchy holding the keys to the nation's wealth, it can be challenging for the average citizen to climb the socioeconomic ladder. Take the example of Russia in the early 1990s. A handful of business magnates, often referred to as the oligarchs, gained significant economic and political power during the privatization process. This led to a stark disparity of wealth, with the oligarchs amassing vast fortunes while many ordinary Russians struggled. Finally, an oligarchy can also breed corruption. When power is concentrated, checks and balances can become weak, leading to the misuse of power. In essence, the power dynamics of an oligarchy operate much like a closed circle. Power begets more power, wealth begets more wealth, and this cycle continues, often at the cost of the many. The concentration of power in an oligarchy can lead to a wide range of societal issues. So, as we navigate our world, it's crucial to understand these dynamics and their implications. After all, knowledge is power, and in this case, it's our ticket to the table. So, what does the rise of an oligarchy mean for the average citizen? Well, let's dive into the impacts of oligarchy on the economy, politics, and society. In an oligarchy, economic power is concentrated in the hands of a few. This often leads to economic inequality, with the rich getting richer, while the majority of the population struggles to make ends meet. The oligarchs, with their immense wealth, can manipulate economic policies to their advantage, often at the expense of the common citizen. Turning our attention to politics, the influence of oligarchs is quite evident. They often use their wealth to sway political decisions in their favor, sometimes even financing political parties or candidates who would further their interests. This can lead to corruption and a lack of transparency, as the political machinery becomes more concerned with appeasing the oligarchs rather than serving the public. But the impact of oligarchy doesn't stop at the economy and politics. It spills over into society as well. the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few can lead to social unrest. The masses, feeling marginalized and left out, may resort to protests or even revolts. Moreover, the influence of oligarchs can extend to media and education, shaping public opinion and perpetuating their power. However, it's important to note that not all oligarchies are the same. Some may use their power and influence for the betterment of society, investing in public goods and services, and driving economic growth. But these are more the exceptions rather than the rule. The impacts of an oligarchy can be far-reaching and detrimental to the well-being of the majority. Society becomes a playground for the powerful few, while the many are left to grapple with the consequences. So, the rise of an oligarchy isn't just about the concentration of power, it's about the erosion of democracy, the widening gap between the rich and poor, and the undermining of societal harmony. The impacts of an oligarchy can be far-reaching and detrimental to the well-being of the majority. We've come a long way in our understanding of oligarchy. We began our journey with a simple question, and now we've unraveled a complex political phenomenon. Let's take a moment to recap. Oligarchy, the rule of a few, is not a new concept. Throughout history, we've seen various examples, each demonstrating the gradual usurpation of power by a select group. We explored how these few, the oligarchs, wield their influence, subtly shifting the power dynamics within a government. Their control is rarely abrupt, but rather a slow, calculated maneuvering, often unnoticed until it's too late. We've also delved into the impacts of such a system, the imbalance it creates, and the potential dangers it poses. Our journey has been enlightening, and while the concept may be intimidating, remember, knowledge is power. The more aware we are of the machinations of oligarchy, the better equipped we are to challenge it.